Welcome to Assembly Update. I am Assemblyman Angelo Santabarbara, representing the 111th Assembly District, which includes Montgomery County, parts of Schenectady County, and parts of Albany County. Today, we are going to talk about some veterans issues. Joining us on the show, Ginger Cusack, who is the VFW Post Commander for 1895, Post 1895 in my hometown in Rotterdam. Welcome to the show, Ginger.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you've been commander of that post
I'm
for
on my third year now.
3 years. And how do you like it so far?
It's a challenge, but it's a worthwhile challenge because the veterans of foreign war fight for the rights of all vets, not just those that served over in theater or in combat areas, but all vets. We fight for the service members who are serving now, trying to maintain some of those benefits that were earned by the World War I and World War II vets. World War I vets had to fight and actually demonstrated, and the president said take care of it at that time, and there were some lives lost because they called the military in on the veterans.
And your background, your family has
yes,
an extensive military background, and it's kind of unique. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your family members.
My grandfather, my dad's father, served in World War I. He didn't serve in theater. He served at what was now Fort Dix, but back then it was called Camp Dix. My dad's brother was actually in Hickam Field when it got attacked at Pearl Harbor. My mother's brother served in Korea. So it's just a continuation. My brothers both served in the Navy. A lot of my cousins either served Navy or Marines. I'm the only Army one.
So I guess a good question is, so growing up, what was it like for you?
My uncle who served in Pearl Harbor, I never knew about until that he served there until a few years ago. And that was a huge impact because that's such a big event in history. I didn't know my grandfather's. He died young, or when I was very little. And my mom's brother, I'd heard a little bit about. I'd seen pictures. I remember seeing the old World War I picture with the whole unit, the panoramic thing, and that was quite impressive. And then as I dug in, my father's a history nut. So, you know, I learned about history and the military as a whole and how they help develop and protect our country to where we have the freedoms and rights we have today.
And you find yourself as the commander now of VFW Post 1895, and that's when I first met you.
Yes.
When you took command there. And I've seen you at many veterans events, Memorial Day and Veterans Day. What is it like, I guess, what is it like going from your previous experience to this position now where you're fighting sort of on the other side, you're kind of fighting for policy?
It's a learning experience because up until, I knew the basics. Everybody learns, or they don't today, but when I grew up and you grew up, we learned how the procedures are done. But then when I became commander, I learned of some of the things that they're trying to take away from us. And I'm always trying to recruit. The numbers make a difference. Yeah. Only 1% of our population serves in the military. It's not a big percentage. To take away or change the retirement benefits. An individual who's done 20 years active duty only gets 50% of their base pay. And what happens is they end up coming out of the military, retiring, and then they have to go and find a job because what they're getting for retirement doesn't cut it. And that's pretty sad, really, that they can't, after serving for so long, can't. I mean, and the reservists, they serve for many years, and they'll get what we call a 20-year letter, which entitles them to some retirement benefits on the reserve side, but they're not called veterans. And these are people that have 72 hours, they have can be told, okay, in 72 hours, you're going. And that's it. So they have to have all their affairs ready. We have 30 days condensed down to 2 days in training. And 50% of the force that's been in Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, Africa have been Reserve and National Guard. So I think they deserve to be called veterans too, because they have to be on standby 24/7. And that's hard on the family. They're giving up their weekends, sometimes the holidays, if they're off doing their training and a holiday hits, they're not with their family. I missed my son's graduation when I was in Kuwait. I've missed an anniversary when I was in Kuwait. I missed my anniversary a couple times since I've been back because I've been on duty. So there,
Right. And how long were you in Kuwait for?
I was there for a year. Train up was 2 months, so that's 14 months, and then I was on active duty for a month after I came back, sort of as an adjustment period.
Right.
Today, they're over in theater and combat areas for 9 months. But that's a huge stress because you don't have that person in a two-family household there. So it's one person doing everything. My husband, when I was in Kuwait, had 2 teenage boys, and teenage kids are a challenge. Run the house, work, get the food on the table and stuff like that. So he became mom and dad for a year.
Right. And like you said, it's a lot of work at home, raising the kids, taking care of the house, and all the other things that need to be done as well.
So I mean, it's a challenge. And then if something happens, my oldest son got bit by a dog, a stray.
Right.
Within the first few weeks I was gone, my husband had to handle it, so they couldn't find the stray.
Right.
So I mean, and he couldn't call me.
Right.
I was sort of busy at the time, in the field training and wearing the gears. You have to train up in the gear, and you're talking about 150 to 175 pounds worth of gear when it's all on. So, and
the adjustment from going overseas to coming back, what was it like when you got back here?
It was very strange.
Okay, and it's a similar thing that I hear from returning veterans.
Depending on where I was in an open bay barracks. It was a cement building, but you still had vents. So when sandstorms came, the sand came in. But I was in a building with 42 other women, and there's no privacy. Sleep is, if you're lucky, because you have different shifts. You're never really off duty. So, trying to get adjusted back to sleeping normal hours or a regular schedule, getting adjusted back to our time frame because there's such time difference. I'd call from Kuwait at 3 in the morning, and it'd be early evening here. So, I mean, there's a huge difference in time. And then just having the freedom again. Being able to get in the car and go someplace, or being able to cook what I want to eat and not what the Army decides.
What is on the menu that day, right?
Yeah, and after a year, they had some really good food, but after a while, it tasted the same.
Well, I hear stories about there's MREs now.
Yes, they've gone back to the MREs to save money.
Okay. And coming from, what was before that? There were...
when I first joined, which was in '77, it was called C rations.
Now, I did not experience those, but in my training...
And I liked the C rations better than the MREs.
The MRE is the plastic bag with the various items in it, which some of them were not too bad. I remember having some of those.
Well, they've improved them, but, they're high in salt.
Yes,
they're high in all these preservatives.
Yes.
So... it's saving money, but in the long run, it's also contributing to health factors, high blood pressure and stuff like that. People lose weight generally very easily over in theater.
Yeah.
Average day, what we call the warm season, by 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, it was already up to 105 degrees. By 8, 9 o'clock, it was up to 130.
Yeah, so those are high temperatures, very uncomfortable. And I did my basic training in Missouri, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Oh yes, Fort Lost in the Woods.
And you know, it didn't get that hot. I don't know if it was over 100. Very uncomfortable.
But you got the humidity there, and
yeah.
Someone says, well, it's a dry heat. A dry heat, humid heat, it's no difference once it hits like 110 because you're miserable.
It's just hot.
You got, the uniform, you keep your sleeves down so you don't get severe sunburn. You got, if you don't have your soft cap on or baseball cap, you have a helmet, ACH, and that in itself is 25 to 30 pounds, and it holds heat in. And then if you're on a spot where you have to wear the body armor, that's metal plates or a form of metal that helps slow down rounds.
Right.
So that holds all the body heat in. It wasn't uncommon, even though I didn't wear that, I'd go in to the barracks at the end of the day and my uniforms would be soaked.
Yeah. And when you get to those temperatures, that's what happens. But the gear is important because it does protect you.
It definitely saves lives. I went through what we call the graveyard, which is where they had all the vehicles that they'd pulled back from like Afghanistan and Iraq from IEDs. Horrendous sight. You'd see holes in them where the insurgents had figured out how to make devices that melted through the metal. You see pieces of uniforms. And imagine beyond that, some of those uniforms still had other parts with them.
Yes.
So, I mean, it was, pretty scary reminder. I was considered a safe area, but it was not uncommon for them to find IEDs, improvised explosive devices right outside the gate, or they try and mess with our water supply.
That's, you talk about the vehicles that were destroyed. I was at a veterans event, and the speaker was talking about a returning veteran that they had been picked up from the airport, and he wanted to drive on the way back from the airport. So as he was driving, he told the story that he was telling us a story that he was driving very slow, and his eyes were on the road, and he was looking back and forth, and everybody was wondering, why are we going so slow? We're going half the speed limit. But he had been trained. He was a driver in these areas, and he had been trained to keep your eyes on the road, look for explosives, look for landmines, look for any danger whatsoever. And once you're trained that way, it's very hard to get, when you return, to come out of that.
Even though I was in a safe area, we would have what we called mandatory fun days, or MWR, which is morale, welfare, support, recreation. We'd go into Kuwait City, and part of the issues there was kidnappings. People would get separated and someone would get kidnapped. But even going there into an area that was considered safe, all of us were watching around us, because you didn't know if that vehicle in front of you was going to slow down enough, or you'd have someone come up from behind. And it took a while to get out of that mode. And then, you'd get into town. If they were on a convoy going in Afghanistan or Iraq, and they were going through a town, they would speed through the town, because that could be so easy for them to get trapped in. So you had either go extremely fast and not stop for anything or anyone, or you're going slow, because if you go too fast, you're going to miss something.
Right.
And the insurgents were very smart, determined individuals, very radical in their thinking, and they had no qualms detonating a device for where we can't see them. And that wasn't uncommon. And my son right now is in Afghanistan. A few months ago, I got an email from his unit, the rear detachment, and they were just notifying that some of the members in the unit had been hit, and the ones that were hit were in a convoy. Out of the 5, 3 died, and 2 died, and 3 were seriously injured. I went a week before I heard from my son because they have a blackout, because they don't want misinformation coming back and terrifying the families of those kids that are all right. And I asked him, he says that he wasn't in that group, which I was thankful for, and he didn't know them because they were a different part of his unit. But that's a fear I didn't understand until he went there. Now I understand how my parents felt anytime they heard the news. Right. It's terrifying.
It is, and we're sorry to hear that. We do thank you for your service and for being there and for serving our country, and thank you for your service as the VFW commander. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we've been talking with Ginger Cusack about her experiences overseas and the VFW Post 895 in Rotterdam. More when we return.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 88. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Packers. Viking. Packers. Viking. Viking.
Red state. Blue state. Vegan.
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
Night owl.
Early bird.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live.
our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Welcome back to Assembly Update. I am Assemblymember Angelo Santabarbara. My district office is at 1170 Riverfront Center, Amsterdam, New York, 12010. I can be reached by phone at 518-843-0227 and by email at santabarbara@assembly.state.ny.us. Welcome back to the show. We've been talking with Ginger Cusack from VFW Post 1895 in my hometown of Rotterdam. And she's been sharing some stories with us, and I thank you for being here again.
My pleasure, it really
Ginger.
is.
And once again, thank you for your service overseas, and thank you for serving as commander. Let's talk about the post. This is your 3rd year as commander.
Yes.
What's it been like? What can you tell us about the post? How can the community help?
We've had ups and downs like any place else. The biggest thing is if there's anybody out in the community who has served overseas in a combat zone, received imminent danger pay or hazardous duty pay, they may very well be eligible. We need members. We are a large group, but we need more members, more numbers to fight for the battles to keep our benefits as veterans. It's really important. There are a lot of bills. I mean, there's a bill that the VFW a few years ago sponsored, and it got pushed through, called the Post 9/11 GI Bill. And it's for those who have served overseas. It can be passed on to their children. Up until that point, we really didn't have an education bill for, the active duty had an education bill, but the reserves and National Guard didn't. So this gave us an education bill that we can use outside of tuition assistance. As college is expensive.
Yeah.
We need numbers to fight for our retirement not to be changed so that we can keep what we have. To take that away is a slap in the face to the veterans. So I really would like to see people in the community come out, go to your local VFWs, see if you're eligible. The VFW provides support to the community as far as we sponsor March of Dime dinners. We sponsored car washes for Special Olympics. My post holds a Santa's breakfast every year. And it's kids 12 and under can come and eat for free. They get their picture taken with Santa and Mrs. Claus for free. And then they get a gift bag with some toys in it. And it's no cost to those families. The adults have to pay, but it's a minimal amount. We do an Easter egg hunt where we have the Easter bunny. We do a Halloween party, and this is open to the community for the kids to come have a safe place to do things. There are programs for the vets themselves called Needs Unmet. A family was affected by a tornado, and they went to the VFW, and the VFW helped them out the best they could, as much as they could financially. So, I mean, there's a lot out there, and the only way to keep going is to join. We are losing our older members, our World War I and II vets. My post recently lost a World War II vet. Wonderful man. He'd been in many positions at the VFW post. So our numbers are dwindling from the older age, but we need the younger ones to come in.
Now, with many veterans groups, that's a similar story that I'm hearing, is that at one time there was a good membership, good numbers, and over time it has gone down, and the VFW is experiencing a similar situation as American Legion and some of these other groups as well. I guess if one of the questions I have is, if you are not a veteran, how can you help the post in other ways? Can you still be a member? What are the options as far as contributing?
There are, if you're not a member, if you have someone who served, a father, a brother, a sister, a grandmother, grandfather, who has served in a combat area, you could be eligible for the men's auxiliary or the ladies' auxiliary. And that's a way of helping. It's supporting our vets. If there are events we're putting on, we open them up to the public a lot of times. Come in, join. These are events that either supply money to relief fund to assist our vets, to organizations. Our relief fund this year, we gave money for the Home for Joe, which is the veteran who came back from Iraq in a wheelchair, who was a National Guard. So we contributed to that. We contribute to a children's home that is for VFW. We contribute to the Guardian Home in Saratoga, which are for female vets who came back from Iraq, Afghanistan, that area, who don't have a place to stay. It's a stepping stone for them to get help to get back into the community and become a part of the community again. VFW has, through 5 locations, homes for the vets, right now primarily male vets, but it goes from assisted living all the way to nursing home care. And there's criteria for that. Community comes out and supports us with our fundraisers. That's a huge help.
And I know in Rotterdam, after all of the veterans events, you sponsor an open house again, just to come in, see the post, talk to some of the veterans, enjoy, and usually I think it's hot dogs or soup.
It
Soup is 1 year.
varies.
Yeah.
It varies. One year we did sandwiches. Another year we've done hot dogs. This last Memorial Day we did hot dogs and hamburgers. We've done soup in the fall.
Yep.
I mean, it's a wide variety.
And it's a great way to just meet your local veterans, say hello, thank them for their service. Ginger, what's the best way to get a hold of you or if somebody wanted to get involved or find their local post?
If you want to find a local post, you can go to www.vfw.org. That will take you to the national site, and on that national site, that page, you can go and choose a state, and it will tell you where you can go, who to contact in the state. It can even go down as far as to tell you what posts are in that state. If you're in this area, you can always call the post. It's 382-1669. You can ask for me. We're at 609 Draper Avenue. Mailing address is in Schenectady, but it's actually just over the Rotterdam line. If you're really interested, you can call my cell phone, and that's 478-1307. I am very accessible to my membership. I'm trying to get into the schools so I can get the Voice of Democracy going again and the Patriots Pen going. Those down the road could be a $30,000 scholarship for a kid.
And certainly you have been accessible, and I've had a chance to talk to you on many occasions. And of course, if somebody wanted to make a financial contribution, they're able to do that as well through the post.
Yeah, just mail it to 609 Draper Avenue, and you can put Relief Fund, and it will go straight to that. I mean, we're donating all the time for a Paws for Patriots, which is helping dogs. I met an individual who's a post commander in the New York State, and he has a dog through that program. There are many programs that the VFW provides for our vets, and the only way we can provide them is if we get people to come out, join, give us that voice, give us your voice, because we're going to speak for you. I'm now trying to learn the process on how to write a bill and how to get it sponsored for single parents, because a single parent can lose custody of their child while they're deployed, and the commander doesn't have to let them come home for a custody hearing because it's not civil court and it's not criminal court.
And certainly it's those issues that are important. And I do serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee, so we will be talking as we go forward here. But I've seen legislation come through specifically addressed issues like that. But they're all very important, and I think the communication process is good. And it's important that we hear from the public and that they support the veterans' issues, because if we're not fighting for them, then who is fighting for them? So I want to thank you again for being on the show.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you asking me.
And I thank you for sharing some of your stories. I know sometimes that's hard to do, and thank you again for your service. Thank you for being the post commander. We will see you at the next event, at your next open house.
Most definitely.
Join us again here on Assembly Update, where we talk more about things going on right in your community. Thank you.